Hey, welcome back to the J&Z podcast. This is episode 3, where we round out one of our favorite movie trilogies, or at least one of my favorites of all time, Back to the Future.
Back to the Future!
It was really good.
So out of the 3, this one is definitely my favorite.
This one is actually my least favorite, so we're gonna have a lot to talk about today.
It's not your least favorite.
I mean, it's hard because for me, this
You're like, it's hard because it's the worst one.
exactly. I gotta be honest with you, audience. I had a hot cup of coffee and I actually fell asleep to this movie. Like I don't know if it's because I'm getting to be an old man, but I fell asleep during this movie. Woke up, had to rewind it, and didn't tell you. So I was just like, I know it's your favorite, so I didn't want to ruin your day.
You could just say you hate me.
Okay, I hate him.
I will say that the reason why I like this movie is it's a little bit different than the trilogy, because it's more of a story around Doc than it is around Marty.
No, 100%. And even, hi, I'm Robert Zemeckis. If you remember from the first 2 episodes, he actually said in an interview that they didn't know what to do with Marty. Like, they were like, we're really out of options with Marty.
Yeah.
We've got Doc, though, and Christopher Lloyd's great, so
True.
Let's see what we can do with him. So this really is Doc's story.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, one of the things that I talked about part 2, we talked about, like, what if that movie never got picked up?
Right.
Like, it left it on such a hard cliffhanger. Think about how number 2 ends.
Oh, yeah. To be concluded.
Yeah, it's a way more intense, like, end cap of a movie. Like, they literally, like, Marty runs around the corner while the terrifying... And as a kid, this scene scared the shit out of me because my brain, as like a 10, 12-year-old kid, couldn't comprehend like what was happening, let alone time travel, all of the stuff that like Marty 1, but
Marty 2.
Doc 3, yeah. Couldn't comprehend it.
Crispin Glover 5. All the Martys that are buried in the back seats.
All right. He flies around the corner, and into Doc, this is the 1955 Doc, he had just sent other Marty back to 1985. But,
And he's like, oh, thank God I did it. Oh my God, everything's solved.
yeah.
And then he's just like, he has a heart attack.
I cannot picture being, like, the 1955 Doc, the amount of trauma he goes through. Like, picture, like, you just take, like, a huge test or assessment, and they're like, hey, thanks for taking the pre-test, here's the actual test, and they drop this huge book on you.
That's like when you take an exam, and you're like, oh, thank God I'm finished. And it's like, there's a backside. Oh my God, there's a backside.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Can I kill myself now? Do you think the moment that Doc saw Marty, he was like, there is no God? Like, do you think he just, like, threw out all religion? He's like, you know what? We're done. Clean slate.
I think anyone would have reacted how Doc did, where he just gasped and fainted.
Exactly.
His brain was like,
I'm done. I can't do this.
It's like, it's not working anymore. Turn it off. Turn it back on.
It's one thing that I actually found out that's cool is Michael J. Fox didn't know there was going to be a third one. He had rented the VHS of Back to the Future Part 2, and when he saw To Be Concluded, he was like, wait a second, I'm doing a third one?
Oh, really?
Agent, am I doing a third one? I literally, Karen, I joked about doing a Western.
Yeah.
I'm doing a fucking third one? I'm finishing up Family Ties. When do I have... Hold on. When do I have time for this? Like...
Because we also talked about how he had his relationship with Family Ties when they were filming the first one, and they wouldn't they didn't want to make him a deal. Like, it was the other actor.
Eric Stoltz.
Right. And I just feel like that also kind of set the tone for it to be a Doc story, I feel like. And so, he runs around the corner, Doc has the panic attack, and then it goes back to Doc's house in 1955.
So this part actually freaked me out. The only it's storming, it's really cozy, but the show Howdy Doody comes on with like a puppet from the 1950s. It's all black and white. I don't like puppets, and so as a kid, the puppet popped up, and I was like, what is that? What is that? Like, everything else, unfazed, like, Biff assaulting a woman, all that. I'm like, no, it's fine, but seeing
the Howdy
Doody, because it wakes Doc up, and he's like, what time is it?
Yeah, and the crazy thing too is they are in his house, but they're all the futuristic pieces are with him. Like Marty is sleeping on like a lazy boy with his feet up on the hoverboard.
That was pretty cool.
It was cool, but like Doc comes to and he still has not grasped like what is going on. Has another panic attack, runs and shuts himself in the bathroom, and then Marty basically just exposition dumps at the bathroom door and is like, well, you did this, we screwed this up, that happened, this screwed up, this happened, so Marty 9 is back again, and we need to fix this.
One thing that I thought was cool, though, is it was exactly like part 2 and part 1, where he gives the information, and then Doc just throws that door open, slamming, and he's like, wait a second. You're right.
Yeah.
It just goes right into it.
Yeah. And so how he basically proves to Doc that this happened is he shows him the letter that he wrote from 1855.
I love how I will be honest, there's a couple parts I like. I love how excited he gets about the fact that he made a life in 1885, where he's like, I always wanted to do something like that. Like, that's so cool. Even like watching it now, I'm like, all right, that's Christopher Lloyd's excitement. It's really cool. I think the thing with this movie that's hard for me, though, is it was made 5 years after Back to the Future.
Really? Wow.
5 years, 1985, and it came out in 1990.
Jeez.
So, like, when I watch this, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, they look older. Like, they look a little bit older. Like, you know what? I can believe in time travel. I can believe in hoverboards.
Hi, Robert Zemeckis here.
Exactly.
Don't pay attention to any of that.
At all. You know, makeup can only fix so much.
Yeah, I like when he reads the letter that he wrote to Marty, basically. And it's really funny because in the movie he says that he could picture living in 1885 as his, like, retirement.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I could totally do that.
That's how I feel when I play Red Dead 2.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to retire here.
Right.
Arthur.
Yeah.
Dutch.
And so they are like, okay, we got to get Marty back to 1885 or 1985 because Doc, living in the Wild West, blah blah blah, being Red Dead.
Yep.
But this scene also scared the crap out of me because they're getting ready to like do all this stuff with the time machine, send him back, but then they're in this like graveyard.
Oh yeah.
And they see a tombstone that has Doc's name on it.
Yeah, and Marty's having a panic attack, and
he
Einstein
freaks out.
Yeah, and Einstein like pisses himself, and he's just like, "Dude, you're dead," and everyone's just like, "Oh my god, Doc, you're dead! Like, how are we gonna solve this one?"
Yeah, and the cool thing is it is a continuation of kind of how they solve problems in the previous movies.
Right.
They take a picture of the tombstone because as history or future or whatever the hell
burn it, burn all of it,
gets rewritten, the photographs change. So like in the first one it was Marty and his siblings, and the second one it was the newspaper with the kid.
Oh, that's so I just now realized that.
Yeah, and then remember at the end of 2, Jennifer pulls out the paper and says you're fired.
Oh yeah.
And then it disappears. So in this one it's a picture of the tombstone.
And then when the lightning struck in the second one where it was like, you know, crazed doctor locked up, it's like free man wins Nobel Prize. Right. That's really cool.
It is really interesting, yeah. And so they now have this, like, you know, panic because, you know, maybe like, okay, like, let me ask you a question.
Okay, go for it.
So the tombstone said died September 7th, 1885, right? So that was only 5 days after he was there.
Right.
Instantly dead, right?
Instantly dead.
Obviously they need to fix that. What if it was like 1900?
Yeah, that's a good point. Would it be one of those things where it's like, well, I kind of lived a good life?
Can you imagine if Doc was like, Marty, you have to go back and save me? And he's like, you lived a good life, probably.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you need to fix this. And he's like, it was 4 or 5 years.
I mean, you had a family and kids. They just died of the rickets.
Yeah.
They got, like, it's like, oh, they got bit by a bumblebee and they just died.
Yeah,
it's like the Oregon Trail where it's like.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is like there's so much, even in just modern medicine in 1955, that is definitely not available.
Oh, nothing.
And the other thing, too, is like.
You get a cold and you just die.
Yeah. And Doc knows of all of this stuff. Like, imagine if he's like, oh, I have a headache. And the doctor's like, yeah, well, we'll just make a little slit in your forehead and we'll drain the... And he's like, that's not going to fix anything. And he's like, I'm the doctor here.
Yeah, right. I have heartburn. We're going to use leeches. Get naked. We'll cover your body in leeches.
Yeah. Oh, do you have a rash there? You just pee on it.
We're going to use rats to bite the sickness out of your head. Don't worry.
See, my problem, too, because of the... Like, just living through a past time period, you also have to, like, re-experience major events that you can't change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's something... The thing, too, is, like, as we will tell you, Doc falls in love with someone that alters a crap ton of things, which doesn't show later, but I'm not going to get into that.
Abraham Lincoln is like, man, I'm excited to go see that movie. And Doc is like, you might not want to sit in the back row.
Right, exactly. It's like, he can't, like, there's a lot, like, World War I, World War II, like, all these major historical
Bite
events.
your tongue. You're just like, okay, all right, buckle up, everybody. Dear Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, he just can't, like, he can't explain that to anyone. And so, to fast forward a little bit, Marty goes back to 1885 to find Doc, basically.
Yep. One cool thing is I like that his name's Clint Eastwood.
Really? I didn't like that.
The only reason why I kind of liked it was because of the trivia where they asked Clint Eastwood and he was like, yeah, you guys can use my name. Like, he actually thought it was pretty funny. So I just like how people were like, Clint, and he's like, oh yeah, that movie's, you don't know who he is.
Yeah. The thing that I found interesting
just like
about
Calvin
that,
Klein.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They, so the ravine that we'll talk about in a second, where Clara, Doc's love interest, is supposed to fall down and die.
Which, if you've seen Step Brothers, she plays the mom in Step Brothers. Yeah. Every time I saw her, I just imagined her going, what the fuck is happening, Brendan? Like, every single time I was like, I just want you to say it. It just was, what the fuck is happening, Doc? Like, I just wanted to hear it once.
Jesus, Brennan.
So, but she falls down this ravine. She was a teacher, and they name it Clara Ravine because she fell down there and died.
Right.
At the end of the movie, where Marty comes back from 1885 and he's on the train track in 1985, you see the ravine that it came from, and it's called Eastwood Ravine.
That's cool, like Clint Eastwood.
Right, yeah.
That's cool.
So, because everyone thought he died because the train, flew off and exploded. Spoiler alert.
Those are the kind of Easter eggs that I do appreciate about the series. Like, that's why I'm glad that we're doing this series and watching it together, or just taking notes, is because there's a ton of stuff that I missed. Like, I didn't know about the newspaper stuff, or like the picture stuff, and you just told me. Like, mine...
Yeah. Well, the thing, too, is, like, I always wonder from, like, a film perspective, like, if someone spends just hours editing and putting in the specific thing and then no one sees it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
like the instant infants.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's actually something that a lot of people talk about, is they're like, the best editing is when you can't notice it.
Yeah.
If you can notice it, then people are like, you're terrible. How dare you? Why did you splice that scene together? Like, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
It's a thankless job.
It is. It really is. And they do a really great job of recreating kind of this, like, Western historical town. But for me, like, the reason why I really like this one is because the Western vibe, I think, is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But I also love the aspect of, like, Doc kind of building this futuristic technology in 1885. So he has this, like, giant contraption and his blacksmith, and it's a refrigerator.
Yeah.
That just makes a tiny little ice cube. And it's just funny because if you think about it, number 2, they're, like, in a writer's room, and they're like, okay, what's going to happen 30 years from now?
Exactly.
Versus going back to 1885, and it's like, okay, what should Doc invent in this time period?
That's a good point, because that does allow you to be like, all right, well, that's almost easier.
Oh, it's way easier, yeah.
Where it's like, okay, he's a scientist, like, he'll come up with stuff.
Right.
There's a certain part in the movie, like, right in the middle, where I feel like it really slows down for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, the stakes were so high for the first 2 movies that when it slowed down, that's when I was like, well,
the thing, too, is it has such a climactic scene, like, for basically once Marty goes back to 1885. Because goes back in the time machine, gets chased by Indians, gets chased by the cavalry, gets attacked by a bear.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then has this stuff with, like, his family, which is just more of an exposition dump again. Yeah. But then finds his way back to town, and then he meets Buford Tannen.
See, that's the part I liked. Like, when he like, I was just kind of waiting for him. I was like, all right, when does Biff, Griff, calling you yellow, like, when does he show up? Because when he wakes up, like, when he wakes up from after getting knocked out, what is it? He looks for his pants?
So, in the first movie, his mom, Lorraine...
Calvin Klein.
Yeah, takes his pants off for...
We've already talked about that. Happy Valentine's Day.
I'm Robert Zemeckis.
I'm a pervert. I'm a pervert.
Yeah. So... In the second one, he does kind of the same thing when he's in Griff.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Mom, you got bigger. Oh.
Yeah, when he wakes up there. In the third one, he wakes up in this, like, Western house, but he's getting out of bed, and he, like, goes to whip the covers off, and he, like, looks down for a second, and then pulls them off, and I'm like, that's really clever, but you're also calling back to a really sick joke.
Yeah, right. At first I thought maybe he's like looking down, like, do I still have my dick? Oh, thank God I have my dick. Like that's all I need. And then he meets his great grandma and all that, and I feel like that's something we can just pass through.
Well, I think back to the scene with Buford.
Yeah, this is good part, fun part for me.
I think it's really funny because he calls him by his like. It's like the Bayside Killer or like the derogatory name he's been given. He goes, "Oh, you're Mad Dog."
You're Mad Dog Tanner.
Mad Dog Tanner.
And it's like he's surprised that he has this like negative reaction to that. It's like, hey, you're that dumb piece of shit I've heard about.
Right.
Why are you upset?
You murder people for a living. Why are you angry at me? I'm just stating the facts.
Yeah. And this is like an escalation from the first two movies because there isn't really a ton of violence, I feel like.
It's like, I'm going to beat you up tomorrow. And again, like we talked about, the entire town shitting themselves.
Right, yeah.
But the other two, it's like, I'm threatening violence. But he's like, I'm going to fucking kill you.
I'm going to kill you, yeah.
I'm going to shoot you in the streets dead. This is legal. I will not get arrested for this.
Yeah.
Look at me, Marty.
And the crazy thing is he like says that he goes into the saloon where Marty walks in and he's like, can I have some water?
Oh yeah, and they're like,
he's like, if you want water, go drink it where the horses drink it from. It's like, then here we serve whiskey because we're alcoholics.
We're men. Go home sad.
Yeah. And so Mad Dog Buford 10 comes in. They have their kind of altercation, and he like shoots the ground.
Oh.
So he starts dancing, and then this scene to me is like pretty intense if you're especially watching it as like a younger viewer. He kind of
boy.
Yeah, he like runs away, gets out like Marty does. He knocks
really quick. So when he starts shooting him, Marty does the moonwalk. He starts doing the Michael Jackson moonwalk, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out, that I thought that was actually something I was like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because they have Michael Jackson show up in other movies too, like in number 2. He was on the TV in the Cafe 80s or whatever.
Even in Mad Max world where Strickland has a shotgun, there was still Michael Jackson stuff. So
yeah, like in that timeline, he survived.
Exactly. Like I just wanted to point that out because I was like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So he runs out of the saloon and he's basically like running away on foot, but they have horses. And then he like literally Red Dead style has a rope and just lassos him and then drags him through. Like he could have just died from that.
Oh, 100%. He could have just snapped his neck, and it's like,
well, not only that, but like he's getting dragged on a horse. His head could have hit a rock.
Roll credits.
Exactly. Like it's like in the movie, it's this beautifully like kind of dirted town. Like there's obviously not roads, but it's like realistically there's like manure, rocks, like gravel, sand, yeah, like exactly. And he like takes him to the clock tower, which is being built.
Yeah.
And he like basically starts to hang him. Like he puts him on a crane, like puts the lasso around his neck, and he's just being hung. And I'm like, we're what, 20 minutes into the movie?
So something to know about this is in Michael Jackson was on my brain. Michael J. Fox, in his autobiography, he wrote that actually choked him. Like the scene, like with the scene, he actually went unconscious when he was choking because someone was just like, "You're doing great. Wow, you're doing really great. Why are his eyes closed? He's turning purple.
So real.
We're getting the take, but is he dead? Is he dying? Like,
yeah. Wow, his whole body just went limp. This is crazy.
He's our $1 million pony, all right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in his biography, it was like, I actually choked until I was unconscious.
Jeez.
It's like, nope, couldn't pay me that much.
And this is another reason why I love this movie so much, is this is your first scene with Doc, who's basically come from 1955, that got hit with the time machine and the lightning in there. You see him for the first time because he shoots the rope that he's being hung from.
That was pretty cool.
With a giant sniper rifle.
I'll be honest, that was pretty cool.
And I was like, that...
Headshot.
Yeah, and then he yells at Buford 10, and he's like,
"I'll shoot the fleas off a dog's back at 500 yards!
Shoot a fly off a dog's back at 300 yards, and it's pointed at your head."
The stakes have just been elevated.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's a version of Doc that we have not seen yet.
See, that's the version of Doc I want to see. I want to see headhunting Doc. Like, 2.0.
Yeah. And so this is where it kind of connects back to why Marty goes back there, because Buford and him get into this like yelling argument where he's basically like, I paid you to reshoe my horse, and then it knocked a bottle of whiskey out because he's still drinking and driving.
Right, exactly.
And he's like, Doc, you owe me $80. And then Doc does something funny. He's like, you never paid me in the first place.
Right.
And he's like, doesn't matter. He's like, I got kicked off my horse. You owe me a new horse and a bottle of whiskey. And he's like, well, where's the horse? And he goes, well, he bucked me off, so I killed it.
I done shot that horse!
Bucked off the horse, doesn't pay Doc back for anything, and basically says, you owe me $80. And this is why this scene is so important, is because on the tombstone, it said that he died over a matter of $80. But I felt like an idiot because he's like, it's $75 for the horse and $5 for the whiskey. And I was like, that wasn't what the tombstone...
Right?
You're an idiot.
Exactly. It's just like, all right, counting.
76, 70, that's not...
And you know, for $80, there was $1 million back then. I was just like, how am I going to get $80? And then I play Red Dead, and I'm like, oh, it's easy. You kill someone, you take their money, you then kill them again, and you take their money.
Right, yeah. But so that's the premise of the photo, because then Marty pulls it out, and he goes, oh, that all makes sense now.
Yep.
What's interesting about this movie, though, is the photo changes between Doc's tombstone to Marty's tombstone.
That was kind of cool.
It was cool. I just thought it was kind of weird because they didn't do that in previous movies. It was Doc's newspaper, right? It was Marty's newspaper, or it was Marty's photo. It was never like a shared thing.
It was never like in the first movie. It shows like Doc's family, and all of a sudden they start disappearing, and Doc's like, I gotta play a solo to make sure they don't disappear.
Yeah. No, that definitely didn't happen. And the third one, it does a really good job of like explaining like all of like the historical things around them and things like that. The only thing that I had a really big issue with in this movie was everything about the DeLorean. So one of the big, like, here we go, plot hole guy, one of the big things is Doc buries the DeLorean.
Yeah.
Right? And he's there for 70 years. And this is before they go back to 1885.
Yep.
But they have to find it. And it's like, if I leave my car in my driveway for like 2 weeks, I'm like, is it going to start?
Exactly. Like, the fact that they had to search for the DeLorean also, I feel like that was... Yeah. I feel like that's also part of the reason why I'm like, this movie, like, the DeLorean is so cool to see that it's just like... It's like, come on, just show me the DeLorean. Show me Biff. Show me the DeLorean.
Yeah.
Show me Biff in the DeLorean. Show me Back to the Future Part 2. Why am I not watching Back to the Future Part 2?
And the thing, too, is, like, the big problem that they have in this movie, which is, like, just kind of weird to think about, is it's not plutonium, right, to power it.
No.
It's gas.
Yeah, that was actually kind of funny when he's like, yeah, plutonium. And he's like, you didn't bring gas? You idiot. Why did you not bring gas? And it's just like, all right.
Well, it's not only that, because Marty's like, oh, we can use Mr. Fusion, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Marty, that's not the problem. He's like, because the Indian, I think, shot the fuel tank with an arrow. And he's like, we don't have gas. And so their next logical step is like, I'm going to buy the strongest whiskey and pour it into the gas tank.
As
and
you
then
do.
they try and start it, and then it explodes.
Oh, yeah. That was definitely... I do remember that part.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that was kind of grim, in different from the other movies is, in almost every movie they make, or Doc makes this life model of how they're going to solve their problem.
Yep.
Right, so in the first one, it's that little red Corvette through the town of Hill Valley, and then it, catches on fire, and he goes, yeah, right.
So great.
In this one, he basically is like, we need to hijack a train, put it behind a train, but then he says something that's, like, really terrifying. He's like, that windmill is the point of no return. Yeah. So, if we decide to go with it, it's either the future or bust. Yeah, right. And I'm like, no, it's death. Exactly. You both are gonna die.
I was thinking about that when I watched it. I was like, if it doesn't work, quick death. It's a quick death. All you gotta do, you can even close your eyes and be like, I'm going back to the future. I'm going back to the future. Like, it's a really quick death. Yeah. And also, what I was thinking about with this movie is, if I was Doc and Marty, I would just kill Biff. Like, as dark as it is to say, like, I'd be like, Biff fucks with us our entire life. He kills you. why don't we just kill him?
Yeah.
Why don't we just break into his cabin and just murder him with a pillow? Like, let's just end it.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Well, in one of the scenes, they're at the town party, like it's a dance thing.
This is probably my favorite scene.
It's really interesting because I really like the scene leading up to it where Biff tries to get into like the party or whatever, and you see the older version of Strickland.
Yeah, with the mustache, with the ZZ Top handlebar. No, Dibadong. Dale Dibadong.
He looks so cool because he's like, you need to check your iron, Biff, before going in here. And he's like, who's going to make me? And then you just hear their shotgun go...
And he's got the old shotgun, and he has it laying, like, on his lap.
Yeah.
And when he leaves, he talks to, like, great-great-grandpa Strickland, where he's like...
the kid,
Yeah, talks to the kid, and he's like, he's a slacker. Don't forget about slackers.
He says, discipline. Don't forget about... And this kid is just, like, absorbing it all, and it's like, oh, God, that's his origin story.
That was so cool, though. I just love just the Doug Dimmadome, the handlebar mustache, and just, like... Fuck with me. I dare you.
Yeah.
Like, he would have been in Tombstone. Like,
Yeah.
he would have fit in as an extra in Tombstone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is my favorite scene with the dance
Yeah,
and everything.
'cause he's
especially trying to get Doc's courage up
Right.
to talk to the girl and dance. And
Yeah.
he's like, I don't know about women. I've never been with a woman.
Yeah, exactly. And he even mentions a joke. He's like, after we disassemble the time machine, I'm going to study the next biggest mystery in the universe. Women.
You know, all the dads and stepdads out there are like, I haven't been able to figure that one out.
They repeat that quote to this day.
Oh yeah, you know, right before they yell at their son to do the dishwasher, you know, he's just like, that joke's funny, Robert. Hey, Billy, why the fuck haven't you done the dishes?
Exactly. So yeah, so he sees his love interest Clara. They start dancing. And this is really interesting. So this is basically depicting the scene as to when Doc gets shot and dies, because it's September 5th, and remember, he dies on the 7th. And so like if I'm Doc, I'm basically thinking, I got 48 hours. Like,
right.
I can do whatever the hell I want.
It's gonna happen.
But Biff, or Buford, sneaks in a gun in his hat, and he puts it up to Doc's back as he's dancing, and Doc says something like, you're going to need a bigger gun to do some damage, and he's like, no, the last guy shot bled to death, and it took 2 days for him to die. And this is, again, where I had to use my mushy think tank and go, wait a second, 6?
Oh, God, that's 2 days.
Yeah. And so, this scene for me, I think they could have done a better job, because literally everything's going as planned for Buford. He points the gun at Doc, and then Marty takes like a Frisbee plate and hits the gun, and then it shoots off Doc's hat. Right, yeah. So at that point, they've altered time, right? So Doc should have died there, but they don't revisit that picture for a while of the tombstone, but like, that was the major pivotal change, because that's when Doc should have died.
What I really like about the scene, though, is when Marty's standing around and he's like really happy that Doc's dancing with the girl. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But the guy's like, you want to try your luck, son, with the gun? And Marty's like, oh yeah, I fucking got this. And he's just like, boom, 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 boom. And the guy's just like,
where'd you learn that?
Yeah, where'd you learn that?
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't know. Don't ask me.
No, I think he tells them. I think he says 7-Eleven.
Yeah, and they're just like, "What the fuck is this 7-Eleven?"
7-Eleven.
Yeah, they're like June 11th. Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was really cool how he's just like, boom, 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 get fucked.
Well, it's back to when he played the I forget what it was, like the Old West shooter
with Elijah Wood, where he's like,
"This is a kid's game." Yeah, right. In the part 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then it turns into an argument between Marty and Buford, where Marty is basically like, it's so funny because like he talks to him like he's a middle school bully, but remember Buford basically tried to shoot, like he's being accused right now for attempted murder.
Yep.
And Marty goes, "Will you quit being such a jerk?" It's like the dialogue versus the context of like what just happened.
Marty might as well he might as well be like, "Hey, you, get your damn hands off a Doc."
But can you picture if we're walking down the street, someone shoots at you and misses, and they go, "Lighten up, jerk."
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Or you're just like, "Hey, don't be mean to my friend." It's like, mean? He wanted me fucking dead.
Shot at me and missed.
I just love how Marty's attitude is like, fuck around, find out.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is, yeah. And then Buford, this is when he's like, "Hey, well, if you got a problem with me, then we should basically go out in the street and shoot each other to death.
Yeah, let's have a scene from Unforgiven.
Yeah, and this is where I'm not a huge fan that they added this as like a staple in the trilogy. He's like, Marty looks at him and he's like, I'll pass.
Yeah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, and then Buford is like, let me use his trigger word.
I know what his word is, the trigger word.
Yeah.
It's not chicken,
Yeah.
it's yeller.
Yeah, and so he calls Marty Yella, and Marty stops on a dime, as if like, I don't even know.
I am activated.
Yeah, right, yeah, it's like a sleeper agent word. Yeah.
Like-
He turns around like he just watched his family get murdered. Like he just
Exactly.
has like intense like bloodlust in
Yeah,
his eyes.
death. He's got death in his eyes.
And he's like, fine, I'll do it, whatever. And Doc's like, what the fuck are you doing?
You don't know how... That was a toy gun. You
Yeah,
used a toy
right,
gun.
yeah.
You don't know how real guns work.
Yeah. And Doc's like, what are you talking about? And then Marty thinks he's being smart because he's like, oh, well, let's just do it like Monday afternoon.
That scene's pretty funny.
Because he knows that they're going to catch the train and leave Monday morning. But
Yep.
then Buford's like, I do my killing before breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get into this argument of like before or after breakfast.
That scene was pretty funny.
It was kind of funny.
I like that.
So then they go back to kind of work on the time machine and plans, get everything put in place. But Doc has like a critical moment where he goes to Marty and he says, Marty, I've made a decision. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, and it's like, if you're Marty, it's like, then why not even show up?
Well, the funny thing is, like, the scene is really short, and Doc ends up changing his mind.
Yeah.
All Marty basically says is, like, that's stupid.
Yeah, you're
like,
an idiot.
He's like, everything you've said in the past 2 movies is if you do stuff in the past, you're gonna fuck up the future. And Doc goes, oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'll go with you.
It's like that scene from Billy Madison where he's like, what you just said was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my
Right.
life. Everybody in this room is stupider for having
Right.
heard it.
Yeah.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, because what he says too is he's like, Marty, you know, like you're right because you try to use, and this is where he kind of throws a little side at him. He's like, you try to use a time machine for financial gain, you dumb piece of shit. And then
Right.
he's like, oh, I was trying to use it because I'm horny. It's
Yeah,
basically-
I'm in love. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you're not. It's
No.
like, and so there is one scene that I think that's why one scene that made me sleepy. It's when they're looking at the stars, him and Clara. Yeah, exactly. They're like looking at the stars, and I was just like, I'm sorry, but I just can't care.
Yeah.
Like I can't. If this character was in the first
They're
2
like,
movies,
you read this really old book? I read this really old book. Oh my god.
seriously, the entire scene, like that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why this movie kind of falls for me. Is it's just like
It's similar
uh.
when Zara and I went and watched The Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah, when they re-released it,
Yeah, because pod races, awesome.
awesome.
Darth
Love it.
Maul, awesome.
Favorite.
Everything else,
Like, come on.
garbage.
There's only so much political talk you can hear in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Where you're literally just like, oh my god, the pod.
Yeah.
Like see, that'll grab my attention.
Right, yeah.
Like in Back to the Future when it's dun, dun, dun.
Right, yeah.
But for a majority of the movie, it's just
Yeah.
so it's too slow for me.
Well, and then the next scene is basically Doc. He's like, I need to break things off with Clara.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of terrible. I thought the scene was actually really funny because he goes there, he knocks on her house, and he's like, I'm leaving.
Oh yeah.
And he's basically treating her like a side piece because he's like, I'm not telling you where I'm going.
I'm ghosting you.
Yeah, do not follow me.
Do not.
And, I would tell you, but you're too dumb to understand.
I have a girlfriend in Canada.
Yeah. And then she's like, Doc, like, just tell me. And he's like, I'm from the future.
Which her head should have exploded. Like she
Yeah.
she should have had a mental breakdown.
She just went, oh, and
fainted.
Yeah.
And then changed her future, but she
Right.
accuses him of lying, and then that
Yeah.
scene happens.
Yeah. And then this is probably the part of the movie I love the most because the first thing Doc does is he immediately goes to a bar.
As you do.
Yeah.
But it's not a bar where people know your name, like Cheers.
No.
It's a bar where nobody cares about him.
No. Yeah.
And he asks for a whiskey, but he doesn't drink it. He like sips on it.
Yeah.
He sips on a shot of whiskey, and
No, he doesn't even sip on
no,
it.
he doesn't.
No, because one of the scenes is Marty jumps in and he's like, "Oh my god, how much have you had to drink?" And the bartender goes, "Nothing." He just likes holding it.
Which, if I was a bartender, I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, "Fucking finish that drink. You need to pay me."
The whole time he's just like this, staring off.
Just
And then
smelling.
this other character comes in from the side and he's like, "I've seen that face before. You just got broken up with." And it's like, if you're in that situation, you're going through like devastating heartbreak, and some guy comes up and he's like, "You look like you're depressed."
Yeah, you
Like,
look like you want to drive a car off of a bridge. That specific bridge on Monday at that time.
like what? How do you react? It's the same way I feel like when someone looks at me and they're like, "Oh, you look really tired today."
Yeah, it's like, thank you?
It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, like, you look good for your age. It's like, what does that mean?
It's like, you look really sad and lonely.
Thanks, it's the trauma. It's the depression, the anxiety, and the trauma.
Right. So then he ends up talking to this guy and like explaining to who Claire is, all this stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Marty wakes up and is like, "Oh crap, it's Monday. We need to get the hell out of here." He runs in, he like clears Doc's head. He's like, "Doc, stop thinking with your dick. We need to go back to 1985.
What Clara?
Right. And then for whatever reason, Doc's like, "You know what, Marty? You're right." And he smashes the table and then he takes the shot, passes out.
Night.
Yeah,
He
immediately
lightweight.
passes out.
Such
Yeah.
a lightweight. It's like, Doc, so you've never... you look like the type of guy that makes his own moonshine out of his backyard. Like, makes his own moonshine, drinks it, offers Einstein stuff. Einstein, you don't want to drink?
You gotta try this stuff.
Like Doc looks like he gets the DTs from not drinking. Like, his hands are shaking as he's trying to turn it on because he doesn't have his own, like, whiskey.
No.
That's the most unbelievable part from the movie. Like, time travel, I believe in. Everything else, I
Time
believe
travel totally makes sense. I'm Robert Zemeckis.
I don't believe.
Stop thinking about
And
it.
alcoholics.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to throw out, there's a YouTube channel called Cocktail Chemistry, and they actually, so there's a scene coming up with the wake up juice that the bartender makes.
Right, yeah, because
Talk
Doc,
about that.
yeah, Doc passes out, and Marty's like, "How much did he drink?" And the bartender's like, "Just the one."
Fucking lightweight.
And Marty looks at him like, "What a pussy."
Exactly.
That's his initial reaction. And so he's like, "Get him black coffee." And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, black coffee would wake me up if I drank it while I'm awake. Like,
Right.
splash water in his face, kick him, shake him, like
Punch him.
Right.
Bop it.
And he's like, "We're gonna need something stronger than black coffee." And he's like, "We're gonna need some wake up juice."
Yep.
And I was like, and then I'm watching him like make this concoction. He brings out like Tabasco sauce, celery, vodka. And I'm like, that's a Bloody Mary.
It's a Bloody Mary. I want some wake up juice.
Yeah.
You know, so there's something called a chemical chemical cocktail, and they actually do make the wake up juice, and he tries it, and he almost throws up, but then he makes like, "Oh, I'm gonna use some brandy or whatever." So it's a pretty cool video just to see like what could taste good.
We'll link it in the description.
Yep.
Yeah. So he puts this metal funnel in his mouth. Yeah, it's very cartoonish. He like pours this whole thing down. He shoots up like he just got shocked back to life, like boom, and he flies up, runs over to the horse like water trough, and just dunks his head in there immediately.
It's like a cartoon character though. It's like steam is coming out of his ears.
There's even a scene where he leaves the saloon and he's like running in place, like he's revving up.
Yeah.
Dunks his head in, they pull him out, he's like unconscious. And what I really like about this trilogy, right, is there's so much going on in this one scene, and then all of a sudden you're like, something else. Something was happening.
Someone's gonna die
on Monday. What was happening?
Guns.
And then you hear just a gun cock. Yeah, and he goes, "Eastwood." And then Buford Tanner comes back in a shot, and it's like, oh, that's right. There's like, we have to go back to the future.
right.
We have to not die.
Someone's gonna die today.
Right. I just feel like in these movies, it's like kind of steady dialogue, nothing really going on, and then all the problems that we could ever potentially have,
Right.
and then they're all solved.
Exactly.
Like it's not. it doesn't feel like it builds up very well. It's like in the first one where that character, the ginger guy.
Yeah. Oh
like,
god.
It's just like they were just it's like conflict. Like
but that's kind of why I like the first two more, is because it's conflict, and with this one, there just feels like there's more lull.
Yeah, I would agree
for
with
me
that, yeah.
personally, there feels like there's
Yeah.
more lull, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't pay attention.
Yeah. So Marty's basically like, he yells through the window. He's like, I forfeit. And this scene I really liked because it plays on Buford's intelligence. And he goes, forfeit. And he looks at his henchman and he's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? He's like, it means he loses without playing or trying. And he goes back, he's like,
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
That's not legal.
Yeah, he's like, that's not...
You're actually yellow.
Yeah.
But I like how the people in the saloon are just like, oh, I don't think you can do that. You legally can't do that. Someone has to die today.
They're calling him a coward, and Marty kind of has
This town needs blood.
They're so bored. They're like, Marty, I have been looking forward to this since Tuesday.
I've got 20 cattle riding on your dead body.
That's what they say.
Yeah, right?
That's what they say. And so Marty's basically like, I'm just not going to do this.
No.
Yeah. And so they like kind of get Doc back together, blah, blah, blah. But then they like get into a fight and they're trying to leave through the back door. And they end up capturing Doc. Marty sneaks away. And Buford's like, okay, you either come out and fight me like a man, or I'm going to kill your blacksmith friend, or whatever he says.
Forget about me, Marty, and save yourself!
So, yeah, Buford basically has Doc, and he says, Marty, I'm going to kill your friend.
He's dead.
Yeah.
He's going to be dead meat.
Right. He's like,
We're going to hang him from the rafters.
Yeah.
Dead.
Right. He's like, you need to come out here and be a man and fight me. Yep. And as Marty runs into this house, he falls down and he sees the door frame of this metal furnace.
Yep.
Cut to back to part 2 where they're watching Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And
This guy gets it. This guy, he's a genius. He's a freaking genius.
yeah. That's Biff.
Yeah.
He's watching a Clint Eastwood movie where he has a metal shield on. Yeah. And he's like, he's just genius.
This guy gets it. This guy gets it.
Yeah. And so Marty puts it on. You don't know this yet. Goes up. They have their kind of standoff. And Buford shoots Marty. He flies backwards. And then everyone's like...
He's dead. You murdered him.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is the town's like not in shock.
No,
like one of the extras just goes...
Exactly. They see dead people every day. It's like, you can't go out in the yard. There's a shootout happening. Like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But one thing that you'd mentioned was that it's like the first movie, Doc had a bulletproof vest.
Right. Yeah.
Third movie, Marty has the metal shield.
Right. Yeah.
I just now realized that. That's cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of unnecessary gun violence.
Exactly. And yet we watched it as kids.
Yeah, true. So he thinks he guns him down. He walks over to him, and then this scene's kind of weird. It goes back to your point of like, why didn't they just like off Biff?
They should have. They should have just killed him.
Right. Like Marty's laying on the ground next to a gun, and he's like, no.
Pulls it, just shoots him in the head. Just there's a shot of it's the bullet hole through his head as he
slow
collapses.
motion.
Doc's like, you didn't have to do that. He's like, what are you talking about? He's been fucking with us our entire life. He was gonna kill you. He was gonna assault my mom.
He's like, Marty, the space-time continuum.
The space-time continuum.
But yeah, so he like beats Biff up with the metal shield that he's wearing, falls into manure. Again, I call back to the manure from the previous movies.
Manure.
There's a really, really awesome piece of dialogue that I love because Marty pulls out the tombstone picture because Biff crashes into the tombstone and it cracks in half.
Yeah.
And Marty looks at it and he goes, "Great Scott!" And then Doc goes, "That's heavy."
Okay,
Which was reversed in other movies.
I thought that was cheesy. I know. Yep. See you later. This is a Zara podcast where we talk about my crap taste in movies, shitty taste in movies.
But so it's like a snap back to reality after that.
Oh, there goes gravity.
It's like, Biff is done, we saved the town, and it's like, wait.
The train.
We need to get the fuck out
It's
of
like
here.
Grand Theft Auto. CJ, you can't miss the train.
Right. So they like hurry up, get to the train, which keep in mind they also have to hijack.
Yep.
Which I thought this line was cheesy, where they're like, "Oh, is this a stick up?" And he goes, "No, it's a science experiment."
Yeah. Again, I think that they were on a lunch break, the writing for this movie,
Yeah.
and they were like, we have to end it with this train sequence and the hoverboard
Yeah.
and Clara being like, I'm scared.
Yeah, Clara somehow manages to find her way to this hijacked train.
There's like some old guy behind her that's like, man was really drunk in the tavern. He looked like he was going to blow his brains out. Really depressed. I think he drinks moonshine at home.
Yeah, he keeps talking about Marty 1 and Marty 2 and Einstein 12.
12.
Yeah. But so, this scene, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question, because this
Go for
scene,
it.
hi, I'm the plot hole guy.
Yep.
So, Doc does not go back in time.
No.
He stays. Marty gets sent off the bridge, dies, just kidding, goes back in time. But Doc doesn't go back in time. He saves Clara, and he goes on the hoverboard and stays there.
Yeah.
But he's like balancing on the front of this locomotive, and Clara is safely in the cab of the train. And he goes, Clara, come out here. Even though he knows he's not going to stay.
Right.
And she ends up like falling and is dangling by the ripping of her dress.
Oh, yeah, no.
And then Doc goes, psych, we weren't leaving anyway.
Exactly.
Like, why didn't he just go, stay there, Marty, I'm not going. I'm
It'll
going to
be
stay
fine.
here.
It'll be fine.
Instead, his Grace here, he's like, Clara, come out here.
Right, let me help you. If she sneezed wrong, she would have just tumbled underneath that train, too.
Yeah. Obviously, another thing that I'll point out, since I'm being the plot hole guy, is they put in these, I don't know what they are, they're like ignition things. They look like linen. I don't know.
Yep.
They threw it in the furnace to make it burn hotter and faster or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the part of the train explodes because it gets so hot. Like,
I remember that.
It's back to the beginning of what we talked about in episode 1, where Marty plays the guitar so loud, and it's like, Marty. 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 Like, it would be the same thing. Doc would be like, Clara.
And she doesn't know what it is, so now she's deaf, and he has to take care of a deaf woman.
Well, she should have been dead, because she should have fallen in the ravine.
Honestly, yeah.
Can you imagine like how much Doc would like potentially hold over her like a psychopath? Like he pulls up old papers like, you should be dead. I saved your life.
She just trips. She like trips him accidentally, and he's like, "Do you remember this? I could have let you die.
This could have been you. Get in the time machine."
Yeah, right. I'm supposed to go riding with my friends to go fishing. You could have died, and I saved you.
He just keeps using that. It's like
super abusive. It's a whole different movie. It's like, wow, this is
Back to the Future Part 4.
Back to the Future Part 4, directed by Christopher Nolan.
So that pretty much kind of gets to the end of the movie.
Yep.
Marty goes back to 1985.
Yep.
He's on the railroad
tracks.
Yeah.
And the railroad tracks are called like Eastwood Railroad Tracks, which I thought was cool.
Well, it's Eastwood Ravine.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Because it was Clare Ravine. Yeah. And then the oncoming train destroys the DeLorean. Which Doc was like, perfect, I'd like that. But I, again, thought back to the Terminator movies where they find the hand of the Terminator and they keep it. So what if, like, Doc 19 comes out and he's like, Einstein, take that back to the lab.
Right, if it's like one little tiny chip and he's just like, it appears, Einstein, that it says Skynet. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Einstein, come here.
Einstein's already half a robot.
Einstein's robotic.
He's like Goddard from Jimmy Neutron. But yeah,
that's amazing. I want that to be a movie. If you can make a poster of Back to the Future Part 3 with Robot Einstein, please do it.
I would pay so much money for that too. It's like, it's not good how much money I would pay for that.
It's amazing.
But yeah, so that pretty much gets to the end of the movie. The end scene is really weird. Like, Marty basically goes back, finds Jennifer, who, keep in mind, and this I thought was interesting, this is the first time Marty has been back to the clean timeline, we'll call it. That's not biffified, if that's a word. The first time he's seeing it where people aren't insane. So he's like, oh, thank God, everything's back to reality. And finds Jennifer. And then this is weird because Jennifer's like, it was a dream. But then Marty, like, isn't denying or saying that it was a dream.
Exactly. It's just, it's kind of vague with her.
Yeah, and then he brings her back to the time machine.
One thing that I thought was interesting that we talked about in the last episode was how Crispin Glover wasn't in this movie.
No.
Like, I was watching his character and he was always in the shadows.
Yeah, weird.
It's like, yeah, we don't want to get fucking sued, so
Yeah.
we need someone that kind of looks like you to hide
I
in the
wonder if they were
shadows.
like, we need to make a part 3 because we just got sued.
Yeah, we just lost a bulk of our money because
Yeah.
the weird guy from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory took all of our
Exactly.
money.
Michael J. Fox, put on this cowboy hat. Christopher Lloyd, action.
Right?
So yeah, then all of a sudden the train, like, you know, the dividers or whatever come down, and then you hear the time machine noise.
We are missing something really quick.
Oh.
It's when they get in the truck and they're driving to the red
Oh,
light, and then
Needles.
Needles
Yeah.
shows up and they start revving the engine, and she's like, "Marty, please don't do this. I think I know what happens to you."
Yeah.
And then it turns green. Needles drives off. Marty puts it in reverse.
Yeah.
Marty goes reverse. And then they almost hit a car, and Jennifer's like, "Oh my god, we would have hit that car, and your hand would have been ruined, and then we would have had a hot daughter, and everything would have went downhill."
Yeah, and we would have lived in that crappy neighborhood.
Yeah, and everything would have been garbage. But
Yeah.
yeah, so train.
Yeah, so it's a train time machine, I guess, because for some... Okay. Hi,
Hi.
I'm Robert
Zemeckis.
Zemeckis.
He's
Don't-
back again.
Don't think about any of this.
Please don't.
So keep in mind, the big pivotal issue in this movie is they didn't have gasoline,
No.
right? So that's
No gas.
we're gonna put that problem right
there.
here, okay? But here's the solution: let's just build a time machine out of a train.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's why not out of a horse?
That clearly is much easier than taking crude oil and making gasoline.
Exactly. Let's
Way easier.
just go for a train. It's got to be bigger, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to be bigger.
And then also it flies, so it's like he also went to the future and he has kids. It's like the other thing too is like, so the kids are probably, I would say, like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, Doc should be like 10 years older.
Oh, 100%. He should have aged.
Yeah, looks the exact same. Clara looks the exact same. Like
That was something as a kid, when I saw his kids show up, I was like, wait, so Doc... Ugh. Like, as a kid, I was just like...
no, Doc.
Exactly. It was just like, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I know why they did it. Like, it was for the audience. Like, the audience wanted to see Doc.
But I didn't need that.
Right, I was okay knowing that he's living happily ever after in 1885, even though, like, how fucked that would be if they get back and Marty finds a tombstone and he dies 2 days after that.
It would
It's
honestly...
like, Doc, stop dying!
Exactly. I can't go back in time, so we're done.
He writes a letter, Dear Marty 13.
Sorry about this again.
Oh my gosh. But yeah,
No, I wish it kind of ended where just it was credits with them, like
Yeah.
them holding each other, walking off in the sunset.
Yeah.
But no, he gets in the train goes in the sky.
Robert
and then-
Zemeckis is like, that's a great ending, but there's not enough plot holes.
Exactly. He's like, so we did great with the first ending. How about we just? It's like, can I copy your homework? But like,
Yeah.
let me change the names.
I'm surprised he's not like, is there a way we could incorporate aliens?
Can I copyright myself? Can I get sued by myself? Because then the train comes and
He's like, wait, if I went back to the...
maybe
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So movie's over. No back in time. No power of love.
The sound, that I will say, number one definitely had the best soundtrack,
Yeah.
obviously, out of all of them. But that's a trilogy.
Yeah, I mean
That's the end of it.
Even part 2 had Can't Drive 65.
That's Sammy Hagar, yeah.
Yeah, so-
which is like a diet Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, not a bit. I'm still not the biggest fan of part 3, but talking to you, it does make me like it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Again, end of the day, part 2 is my favorite.
I would go with part 3. Part 1, I feel like it's iconic, but it just doesn't do the same thing for me as part 3 did.
No.
But that's the end of this kind of mini-series. I think next we're going to do the Batman trilogy.
Oh hell yeah! we're gonna take it to Christian Bale Town.
Yeah, we're going to start with with the best Batman voice. There's another YouTube video I link where they compare actors' Batman voices.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually, I'm excited for that.
It's really funny because like there's some that don't change it at all. Like
Oh,
George
yeah.
Clooney, he comes down, sees like Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and goes, "I'm Batman." It's like, you totally fucked that.
I'm willing to spend like $100 just to get the Keaton Batmans and watch it together.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are some of my favorites. Because he does like I'm Bat-Light. Like it's like I'm Batman. Like it's like he also kills people, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm super. But we're doing like Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. So again, new episodes every Sunday. I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm so hyped.
Yeah, and then also we have some of you might know an audio version on Spotify. We'll put that in the description. But that's pretty much it from us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us these past 3 weeks. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Adios.
Adios.